Have you ever wondered why some people seem to glide through life effortlessly while you struggle with every step? Have you ever questioned why your best intentions lead to your worst outcomes? Why your kindness gets repaid with cruelty? Why your loyalty earns you nothing but loneliness? If you're watching this, chances are you've been asking these questions for longer than you care to admit. And tonight, something inside you broke just enough to let the light in. What if I told you that everything you've been taught about success, about relationships, about how the world works, was designed to keep you exactly where you are right now? Frustrated, confused, and powerless. What if the very beliefs you've clung to, as virtues, have been the chains keeping you from the life you actually want? You see, there's a hidden curriculum in life that nobody talks about. While they were teaching you to share your toys in kindergarten, some kids were learning to take. While they were telling you to wait your turn, others were cutting in line. While they were praising you for following rules, rebels were writing new ones. And somehow, you ended up here, wondering why playing by the rules never got you what you wanted. Let me paint you a picture. Remember that moment when you realized your childhood hero wasn't actually heroic? When you discovered that the teacher you admired was just going through the motions? When you found out that your role model was living a lie? That shattering feeling wasn't disappointment. It was awakening. Your mind was beginning to see through the carefully constructed illusions that keep most people asleep their entire lives. But here's what nobody tells you about awakening. It's not a gentle sunrise. It's a violent earthquake that destroys everything you thought you knew about yourself and the world around you. Most people feel that first tremor and immediately try to rebuild the same house on the same foundation, desperate to return to their comfortable delusions. They'd rather live in a beautiful lie than an ugly truth. You're different. You felt the ground shake beneath your feet, and instead of running back to safety, you stayed. You watched your old world crumble. You let it fall. And in that rubble, you started to see something that had been hidden from you your entire life. The actual rules of the game. The game isn't fair. It never was. While they were teaching you that good things come to those who wait, the winners were learning that good things come to those who take. While they were telling you that honesty is the best policy, the powerful were mastering the art of strategic truth. While they were preaching about the meek inheriting the earth, the bold were claiming their kingdoms. Think about every person who has ever hurt you, betrayed you, or left you behind. What did they have that you didn't? Was it luck? Was it connections? Was it talent? Look deeper. They had something you were taught to see as weakness. They had the ability to prioritize themselves without guilt. They could make decisions based on what they wanted, not what they thought they should want. They could disappoint people without losing sleep. They could say no without writing a dissertation explaining why. You've been living your life as if there's some cosmic referee keeping score, as if being good, being kind, being selfless will eventually be rewarded by the universe. But the universe doesn't have a customer service department. It doesn't hand out participation trophies. It responds to one thing: power. Not the kind of power that screams and demands attention, but the quiet, unshakable power of someone who knows exactly who they are and what they want. This power terrifies people because it can't be controlled, manipulated, or bought. It doesn't need validation, approval, or permission. It simply is. And when you possess it, everything changes. People who once ignored you suddenly pay attention. Opportunities that once passed you by start seeking you out. The world that once pushed you around starts making space for you. But before you can claim this power, you have to face a truth that will disturb you to your core. You've been complicit in your own powerlessness. Every time you said yes when you meant no, every time you shrank yourself to make others comfortable, every time you chose being liked over being respected, you were training the world to treat you as less than you are. The people who hurt You didn't see something weak in you that wasn't there. They saw something weak in you that you put there. They sensed your desperation for approval, your fear of conflict, your need to be seen as good, and they used it. Not because they're evil, but because that's how the game works. Predators don't create prey. They simply recognize it. Right now, you're probably feeling a mix of anger and recognition. Part of you wants to reject what I'm saying, to defend the version of yourself that you've been. But another part, the part that brought you here tonight, knows I'm right. That part has been whispering to you for months, maybe years, telling you that something fundamental needs to change. The question is, are you ready to listen to that voice? Are you ready to stop being the victim of your own kindness? Are you ready to trade your comfortable suffering for the uncomfortable truth of your own power? Because once you cross this threshold, there's no going back. Once you see the game for what it really is, you can never again pretend to be innocent. Once you understand how power actually works, you become responsible for wielding it. And that responsibility will change you in ways you can't yet imagine. The person you've been, the one who worried about what everyone thought, who bent over backwards to avoid conflict, who gave pieces of themselves away, hoping for love in return, that person is about to die. Not literally, but completely. And from their ashes, someone new will emerge. Someone who understands that respect isn't given, it's commanded. Someone who knows that love isn't earned through sacrifice, but through becoming someone worth loving. Someone who realizes that the world doesn't owe you anything, but that you owe it to yourself to become everything you're capable of being. This transformation isn't pretty. It's not Instagram-worthy or motivational poster material. It's brutal, isolating, and painful. You'll lose people who preferred the smaller version of you. You'll disappoint those who benefited from your weakness. You'll face criticism from those who are threatened by your growth. And through it all, you'll have to resist the temptation to shrink back down to a size that makes others comfortable. But here's what waits on the other side of that transformation. Freedom, true freedom. Not the illusion of freedom that comes from having choices, but the real freedom that comes from no longer needing anyone else's permission to be who you are. The freedom that comes from knowing you can survive anything because you've already survived the death of who you used to be. Most people will never experience this freedom because they're not willing to pay its price. They want the results without the revolution. They want the power without the responsibility. They want to transform without changing. But you can't have new results with old patterns. You can't claim new territory with old maps. You can't become someone new while clinging to who you've always been. The choice is in front of you right now. You can close this video, return to your old life, and pretend this conversation never happened. You can go back to hoping that somehow, someday, the world will recognize your goodness and reward you accordingly. You can keep waiting for permission, for approval, for someone else to validate your worth. Or you can take the first step into a new reality. A reality where your value isn't determined by others' opinions. Where your power comes from within, not from without. Where you're the author of your own story, not a character in someone else's narrative. The path forward isn't what you think it is. It's not about becoming ruthless or cold. It's not about abandoning your humanity or treating others poorly. Those are the mistakes that weak people make when they first taste power. They swing so far in the opposite direction that they become caricatures of strength rather than embodying true power. Real power is precise. It's surgical. It knows exactly when to be gentle and when to be firm. It understands that kindness without boundaries is weakness, but boundaries without kindness are cruelty. The truly powerful person doesn't need to prove their power to anyone because they're secure in it. They can be generous because they choose to be, not because they have to be. This is where most people get confused. They think that becoming powerful means becoming mean. But observe the people who actually run the world, who actually get what they want, who actually command respect. They're not the loudest people in the room. They're not the ones throwing tantrums or making threats. They're calm, composed, and utterly certain of their position. Their power comes from self-mastery, not from dominating others. They've learned to control their emotions instead of being controlled by them. They've learned to think strategically instead of reactively. They've learned to play the long game instead of seeking immediate gratification. And most importantly, they've learned that the only person they need to defeat is the person they were yesterday. This is the real battle, the one between who you are and who you could become. Every day, you face a choice between comfort and growth, between the familiar, prison of your limitations, and the unknown territory of your potential. Most people choose comfort because growth is uncertain, uncomfortable, and unforgiving. It demands everything and promises nothing except the possibility of becoming more than you are. But you're not most people. If you were, you would have stopped watching long ago. You would have dismissed this as too harsh, too cold, too realistic. You would have gone back to your comfortable delusions and your soothing lies. The fact that you're still here tells me something crucial about who you're becoming. You value truth more than comfort, growth more than safety, authenticity more than approval. This shift in values is the beginning of everything. When you stop prioritizing how others feel about you and start prioritizing how you feel about yourself, when you stop asking, will they like this? And start asking, is this right for me? When you stop seeking external validation and start building internal worth, everything changes. People sense this change before you even announce it. They feel it in your presence, in your energy, in the way you carry yourself. You stop apologizing for taking up space. You stop explaining your decisions to people who didn't earn the right to question them. You stop shrinking yourself to accommodate others' insecurities. And suddenly, the same people who once ignored you start paying attention. This attention might confuse you at first. You might wonder why people are suddenly interested in your opinions, your time, your approval. The answer is simple. Scarcity creates value. When you were available to everyone for everything, you were worth nothing to anyone for anything. But when you became selective, when you started saying no, when you began treating your time and energy as valuable resources, others began to see them as valuable too. This is one of life's cruel ironies. People only value what they might lose. The person who's always available has no value because they can be taken for granted. But the person who might walk away, who might say no, who might choose themselves over others, that person becomes precious because they're not guaranteed. Understanding this principle changes everything about how you approach relationships. You stop giving your all to people who give you their leftover attention. You stop investing in those who wouldn't invest in you. You stop being loyal to people who haven't earned your loyalty. And you start building relationships based on mutual value rather than one-sided desperation. This doesn't mean you become calculating or manipulative. It means you become strategic. You start asking better questions. What does this person bring to my life? How do they treat me when they don't need something from me? Do they support my growth, or do they prefer me small? These aren't cruel questions. They're necessary ones. Your life is too valuable to spend it with people who diminish it. As you begin to implement these changes, you'll face resistance, not just from others, but from yourself. Your old self will fight for survival. It will try to convince you that you're being selfish, that you're hurting people, that you're becoming someone you don't want to be. This internal resistance is normal and expected. You're essentially reprogramming decades of conditioning. It's going to feel wrong before it feels right, but pay attention to the results, not the feelings. Notice how differently people treat you when you treat yourself differently. Notice how opportunities appear when you stop settling for scraps. Notice how your confidence grows when you stop seeking it from external sources. These changes don't happen overnight, but they do happen if you're consistent and patient with the process. The hardest part isn't learning new behaviors, it's unlearning old ones. It's breaking the habit of people-pleasing, of over-explaining, of accepting less than you deserve. It's learning to sit with the discomfort of disappointing others without immediately trying to fix it. It's training yourself to trust your own judgment instead of constantly seeking other opinions. But as these old patterns die, something beautiful is born: authenticity. For the first time in your life, you're not performing for an audience. You're not wearing a mask or playing a role. You're simply being who you actually are, without apology or explanation. This authenticity is magnetic because it's so rare. In a world full of people pretending to be someone else, being genuinely yourself is revolutionary. This is your new reality, a life lived on your terms, by your values, for your purposes. A life where your worth isn't determined by others' approval, but by your own growth. A life where you don't chase respect because you embody it. A life where you don't beg for love because you're worth loving. The person you're becoming doesn't need this video, doesn't need motivation from external sources, doesn't need permission or validation or approval. They create their own energy, set their own standards, and write their own rules. They're not waiting for the world to change, they're changing their world. This transformation is already beginning. You can feel it, can't you? The old you is dying, and the new you is being born. It's uncomfortable, uncertain, and sometimes painful, but it's also inevitable. You've seen too much to go back to sleep. You know too much to return to ignorance. You've tasted freedom, and nothing else will ever satisfy you again. The only question now is, how quickly are you willing to embrace who you're becoming? How much are you willing to let go of who you've been? How ready are you to stop surviving and start thriving? Your time is now. Not when you feel ready, not when conditions are perfect, not when others give you permission. Now, while the fire is burning in your chest, while the vision is clear in your mind, while the old you is weak enough to be defeated and the new you is strong enough to emerge. This is your moment. This is your choice. This is your life. What are you going to do with it?